Good evening. We're putting on Face Off tonight a story that normally wouldn't be the burning issue of the day. You wouldn't see a mainstream channel do a primetime debate on this. But slowly, yet surely, it is beginning to affect thousands of people, their livelihoods and their families. I'm talking of the layoffs that are happening in the IT sector, the sunshine sector. Not quite sunny anymore. First it was Wipro, then CTS, now the latest is Tech Mahindra, all of whom are laying off people. At the same time, bellwether Infosys is promising to hire 10,000 Americans over the next 2 years. What is going on in the Indian IT sector, which, like I said, once upon a time used to be the sunshine sector? Is the dream run in the IT sector finally over? And more importantly, if you happen to be in that sector, if you are an IT engineer watching this program tonight, what should you do to reskill yourself? That's what we're debating tonight on Face Off. Worrying signals of India's IT sector as bellwethers resort to harsh measures like laying off people. Tech Mahindra is all set to give pink slips to about 2,000 employees, and this is across the board. That is on the back of job cuts in Wipro and severance packages in Cognizant Technologies. And we'll be putting that to our guest panel tonight, and you can vote for the best debater of the night. Prabhat Kumar is the president of IIT Delhi Alumni Society. Gaurav Chaudhary is Delhi Bureau Chief of Moneycontrol.com. PN Vijay, economist and MD of PN Vijay Financial Services and also part of the BJP. He'll be joining us. Krish Lakshmikant is founder CEO of one of the biggest headhunter firms in the country, Headhunters India. Nandita Gurjar is former global HR head for Infosys. And Mahesh Murthy is founder and CEO of Pinstorm. And like I said, you can vote for the best debater of the night. Go to our Facebook page or go to our Twitter page. It's the pinned tweet there. Take part in the poll and you can decide whose arguments you were convinced by the most. Has the dream run for Indian IT and software finally come to an end? That's the question. That's the motion tonight. While that's our big focus, our big debate starts in just 2 minutes. Here are the other headlines that we're tracking this Thursday evening. For the first time in 20 years, the Lashkar is all set to dramatically cut down on infiltrating its own terrorists into Kashmir. It will rather focus on terror training for homegrown elements in the valley to keep the pot boiling. CNN News 18 reveals the Lashkar's new Kashmir strategy. 48 hours after Lieutenant Umar Fayaz was abducted and killed, Kashmir speaks up, rejecting fear of the terrorists. 3,000 young men turn out at a police recruitment camp in the valley, even amidst violence against security forces. Expelled BSP leader and Mayawati's aide Naseemuddin Siddiqui drops a bombshell. He claims he has a phone recording of Mayawati demanding 50 crore rupees from him via a party membership drive. Siddiqui, who was sacked from the party earlier this week, claims that Benji abused Muslims of Uttar Pradesh. The Supreme Court begins hearing arguments to decide on the constitutionality of triple talaq. The NDA sticks to its guns, calling this an inhuman practice. The All India Muslim Personal Law Board says the apex court cannot rule on religious personal laws. But up first, all's not quite well with India's prided sector, information and technology and software services. Falling profits, a poor growth outlook, and perhaps most worryingly, big layoffs in some of the bellwether companies are showing up an inherent lack of health. A host of new age challenges that the Indian IT industry hasn't quite been able to keep pace with are also held responsible, pointing to a desperate need for a large-scale revamp. As worries rise over whether the golden era of Indian IT is finally coming to an end, and this of course is stretching back to the 1990s, the question we're asking is twofold. One, what is it that Indian IT can do to pick itself up again? And more importantly, if you happen to be an IT engineer watching this program, what can you do to reskill yourself for the new age IT job? First, our day story, and then we'll get to our panelists.
जब मैं कहता हूं बड़े विश्वास से कहता हूं IT plus IT is equal to IT, information technology plus Indian talent is equal to India tomorrow.
Typical Modi speak as the Prime Minister launched the Supreme Court's new digital filing system on Wednesday, celebrating Indian IT as it were. A day later, a not-so-happy reality stares. Clouds over this once glittering sector that have gathered for some months darken further. CNBC reports that Tech Mahindra has announced pink slips to 2,000 of its workers, calling it a routine measure to weed out bottom performers. Mid-level employees, those with 10 to 15 years experience, are expected to be worst hit. Another bellwether, Wipro, has announced 600 job cuts. Cognizant, that's already announced a voluntary separation option, is expected to cut its workforce by 5 to 10%. That's 6 to 10,000 workers by the end of this year. And there's word that even Infosys is likely to fire an unspecified number of workers. These numbers are the more glaring fallout, visible results of this once sunrise sector being unable to keep up with changing demands as well as challenges of the day. Marked movements towards automation, use of artificial intelligence and robotics, and tightening visa and work permit rules in target IT business areas come as big blows, with the result that companies like Infosys are cutting down on hires at home and recruit directly in countries like the US. In addition, global firms are seen shifting budgets from traditional IT services to digital and cloud. A recent McKinsey report says new automation and cloud computing tilts will mean almost half of India's 3.7 million strong IT workforce will be irrelevant in 3 to 4 years. The writing is on the wall. As it overcame crises in 2001 and 2008, can the Indian IT sector win over this challenge too? Or is the dream run for Indian IT, its lording over the world, now a thing of the past? That's our debate tonight on Face Off at 9.
So is the dream run for Indian IT over? That's our motion tonight, and here in our studios, our panelist Prabhat Kumar is president of the IIT Delhi Alumni Society. Gaurav Chaudhary is Delhi Bureau Chief of moneycontrol.com. We're joined via satellite by PN Vijay, economist and MD of PN Vijay Financial Services. Krish Lakshmikant is founder, CEO and chairman of Headhunters India. Nandita Gurjar is former global HR head for Infosys, and Mahesh Murthy is founder and CEO of Pinstorm, and we'll also be joined on the phone line by somebody who's working in the IT industry. Of course, we will protect his identity, and he'll give us a real picture of what exactly is happening right now in that space. But Gaurav, like I said at the top, I'm a novice to this because, you know, is the situation in the IT sector as alarmist as our debate topic tonight suggests, or should...
Looks like, because I think we have got, the IT industry has got completely underprepared. Okay. On what was coming on the visa front. Okay. Clearly they saw the writing on the wall, and this was long time coming. Trump was elected as president in November. He took oath in January, and much before he got elected, the indications were quite clear that he could come into office and force this kind of a decision. However, the services, the IT services industry clearly did not rise to the occasion and got itself completely underprepared. That said, I think the industry has also caught itself on the wrong side of the technology cycle. Okay. The maintenance kind of work is now getting increasingly robotized. Yeah. Automated, and those kind of low-hanging fruit work is not coming to India anymore, or worldwide.
I mean, that's one part of the problem, Prabhat. But the question really is what Gaurav raised at the beginning. There's H-1B problem. Right. We knew it was coming. I mean, not just because of Trump, but the whole conversation in the US was around it. Did Indian IT not prepare well enough for it?
You see, I mean, we could not see the writing on the wall coming clearly, as he just mentioned at the moment. The thing is that, like, globally, we are facing job losses. Like even in US also, there has been a problem of unemployment. In Singapore also, Australia also. So even there is a rise of protectionism in these countries. Yeah. So
no, but we knew this. I mean, even before Trump, we knew that this was coming.
But thing is that we thought that without our IT guys, perhaps they will not be able to sustain. You know, okay. They will be always needing this cheap labor, the cheap manpower, so that they can, because the costs are really high. Okay, so
Nandita Gurjar, I mean, it's got to a point where even a company like Infosys or Bellwether is having to promise that it will hire 10,000 Americans over the next 2 years. The same question, the same point that Gaurav raised. Are Indian IT companies guilty of not having prepared enough for this coming storm?
So really, I think we are talking a lot of things here. We are talking about the current time when typically people are let go because of performance. I mean, there is an annual performance cycle in April, which is when, you know, typically about 2 to 3% of the workforce is asked to go. There is nothing new in this. I mean, for decades this has happened, right? The real reason why there is noise in the market today is because these organizations have become large. They are 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, and therefore, you know, their 2 to 3% has become significant.
Okay.
Right? And when you ask them to all be let go at the same time, and there is rumors, and I continue to believe that these are rumors, that there aren't jobs anymore, you know, in these companies, then there is a sense of panic which has got created. If you look at the attrition which has been reported by all these companies, they are about 12 to 15%, which means, you know, 15 to 30,000 people are leaving these organizations voluntarily. Obviously, jobs exist. They are going and joining other organizations, right? So when you let go 3,000-4,000 people, they are obviously going to find jobs in other companies.
No, but the thing is, Krish, the point is, I mean, I'm just going to read this out. Tech Mahindra, this is the latest news, and this is the trigger for our debate tonight. Tech Mahindra has announced it's going to lay off about 1,500 to 2,000 employees, and most of them are mid-level workers, which means they've got about 10 to 15 years experience. Same's the case with CTS. They've called this voluntary separation packages, and CTS says this is an annual process that happens. It's just that the news media has made a big deal of it this time around. The worry is this. It's not just entry-level workers where there is a freeze or where there is a trimming happening, but these are folks who've got 10, 15, some of them even 20 years experience. That's where the maximum layoffs seem to be happening. Is that a cause for worry, Chris?
Jacob, you have hit the nail on the head. Just about an hour back, I got a call from a person who is working in Cognizant.
Okay.
He has to decide by tomorrow, that is, tomorrow is the deadline for him, whether he will take the 9-month separation or not. So, and he is one of the 1,500 people who have been offered this voluntary separation. He is, I'll tell you, he will get a job easily because he is an MBA from XLRI. He is below 40 and still he is being offered this chance. I have told him, take it because you will get 60 lakhs in your thing, and then we will get you a job. The point is, today there is a tsunami in the industry. People talk that 20 years that it has not happened. But I can tell you it is not a storm, but it's a tsunami. According to me, 100,000 jobs will disappear in this industry in the next 1 year.
Wow. Hang on.
Yes, it will come back
hang on. 100,000. Say that again.
Hello?
Say that again. That's 100,000 jobs in the next 1 year.
Yeah,
is that your estimate?
100,000 jobs will disappear in the industry. Today, the industry has 40 lakh people. At the end of 1 year, it will become 39 lakhs.
That is a bloodbath.
Maybe another 20, 30,000.
That is a bloodbath.
It will be. It has to be, and there is no alternative.
Okay.
You see, according to industry people, 70% of the people who are working in any of the companies cannot be reskilled for the digital age. That means if you are talking of, say, 200,000 people working in a company, 150,000 cannot be reskilled. You may try all your best, but possibly you may get 30, 40,000 reskilled. So it is going to be a bloodbath. People are aware of it, I think, because we get calls across the world, from the world, and it is definitely a frightening
So let me put that to P.N. Vijay. I mean, this should clearly worry you, P.N. Vijay. I mean, this affects not just the industry and the big bellwethers and the smaller IT companies. This affects government as well, because one of the big promises for which Mr. Modi and the BJP were voted into power was creating jobs.
I think, as the gentleman said, there is a tsunami here, and I'm sure that the industry, which has had a golden period since 1990, when Narayan Murthy started Infosys, is now going towards a new normal. And it's unfortunate that the industry didn't rejig itself to cloud computing, the digital age, etc. And also, I think it made a lot of mistakes. You cannot forever be carrying on a 35% EBITDA business without trying to rebuild itself. They built huge cash mountains. They paid fancy salaries of 8 lakhs and 10 lakhs to kids. They paid themselves so much money that their promoters are now big private equity funds themselves. So it was all happening in front of us, and I think the writing was on the wall, because you know, it's interesting, Zakka, that when the textile industry and the steel industry passed through similar situations or worse situations, we did not have a special prime time program on that.
No, but
whereas I think the job losses there were much more.
Hang on. The textile industry and the steel industry are not quite equivalent to the IT industry. I mean, the IT industry is, in a sense, what put India on the global map. In that sense, and it happened to coincide with the Indian economy opening up as well.
I would say that yoga put India on the global map much more than any IT industry.
Come on.
You
can't reskill these 1 lakh people that Chris is predicting will lose jobs in the next 1 year. You can't make them all yoga practitioners, no?
Of course. You have to start new gardens, new blooms. That's how countries develop. 2.5 million jobs were created in the retail sector. Now the problem is getting accentuated because of the bloodbath in the e-commerce sector. If Snapdeal is followed by Amazon, you're going to lose 6,000 jobs and so forth. So if Gurgaon is the hard rock, then Bangalore is the deep sea. So the problem here is, Zakka, over the last 10 years, there are government contracts going a-begging. There were huge contracts from the government which we are giving today for Digital India, for Smart India, but these guys are not picking it up because their labor costs are so high. They have built up huge 5-star campuses that they have to reinvent themselves.
Let me go.
That's the problem. The IT industry has to do a lot of soul searching. IT industry has to do a lot of soul searching and reinvent itself to a new normal.
Fair enough. Let me go to Mahesh Murthy. He is in Bombay and he's literally halfway between the hard rock and the deep sea, as PN Vijay put it. The point is, does this extend to startup and the startup ecosystem as well, or is it just restricted to the IT sector?
So actually I want to start by agreeing with Mr. Vijay. I think the key thing here is to understand that industries have ebbs and flows and they all go, they grow and you think they'll grow forever. We thought steel would grow forever. 50 years ago we thought coal would grow forever and we thought IT would grow forever, and that's just not true. So we are actually seeing the slow decline of the IT industry. I actually believe that the 40 lakh jobs will actually drop even more precipitously. To take issue with what the lady from Infosys said, that this is a normal thing. It's not a normal thing. The first thing to understand is that you may lay off 2% of your staff come every March, April, but you go and add 7, 8, 10% over the rest of the year. But that's not happening. We're seeing a net reduction in jobs. It's much more than 2%. Just the number that's been used so far on the top 4 companies that I've been reading is 58,000 jobs from the top 4 companies which have a joint staff strength of 700,000, which means we're talking about 8-9% of net loss only in the top 4 companies. It's bound to be even more precipitous in the other companies. So if you look at it from this point of view, where is the way out? And I think the interesting thing is the government's probably got to change. I mean, if all the past governments so far have been looking at working with large companies and helping them become larger, probably this is a time to look where rather than supporting 3 guys who already have 100,000 people and asking them to go to 300,000 people, which is not going to happen, you probably want to work with 30,000 startups and let them go each at 100 or 1,000 people. That's going to probably get you the jobs that you want. We are hearing of, even the president talked today about, economy which is growing while jobs are not, which is not really a particularly healthy sign. It will lead to all kinds of unrest. We simply have to focus on smaller and more agile businesses in every part of the ecosystem. So in some ways, the IT, wave has run its course. We're on the other side. It's not going to go away. There will be a few companies that survive. They will be, they'll have much lower net margins, much lower gross margins. The stocks will come down to far more believable, far less nosebleed levels, and we will see the birth of something else. That's got to happen. We will have to go from a services economy to a product economy.
Nandita Gurjar, I want you to respond, because both PN Vijay and Chris certainly, and Mahesh Murthy also in a sense was contradicting what you said. This is not just normal stuff that happens. This is more than what happens every other year. We're seeing the slowest growth in over a decade in the last year or year and a half. It's not just that people are being laid off, but also hiring itself has come down quite substantially.
Yes. So let's put this in perspective. I'm talking about the performance management cycle, which happens annually in April. At which point it has always been the time when people, 2 to 3% of them, are asked to go, right? So that is on one side.
Okay.
The reason why the hiring has not increased is because there are a lot of changes which have hit the IT industry at the same time, right? The whole visa issue, the whole business model changing, the kind of skills which are required, digital, cloud computing. Now, if you really look at the IT spend has not reduced. It just has shifted. It has moved from the normal business to something which is more specific. There is AI, there is automation, there is digital, there is cloud computing, and customers are spending a lot of money on this.
Okay.
Now, when you're expecting an industry to make the shift from the current skills to the new skills, it always takes time. And I want to tell you that there is no other industry than the IT industry which has demonstrated that the core of their business has always been skilling and reskilling. Technologies change every 18 months, in spite of which they have not laid off a workforce, they have reskilled them to manage new technologies.
Okay, fair enough.
But this takes time.
What I want to do now is, okay, got it. What I want to do now is I'm going to go across, somebody's joining us on the phone line, Ashwin. I'm not going to reveal his second name, I'm not going to reveal which company he works for because of his own safety. Ashwin, thanks for speaking with us. Ashwin, by the way, works for one of the big software companies in Bangalore. He's joining us on the phone line from Bangalore. Ashwin, tell our viewers, you're not an entry-level engineer, right? You're what, 3 years into the profession?
Yeah, that's right. I've been working here for the past 3 years.
For the past 3 years,
as a software developer.
Okay, so you're basically a ripe candidate for an on-site position. I mean, 5 years ago, if somebody was in one of the big software companies working in Bangalore with 3 years experience, you would be the ripe candidate to go on-site, right?
Yes, that is correct.
But so far, whether it's you or your batchmates or even people senior to you, are still not taking that flight to the Big Apple.
Yep. And that's mainly because, these visas that happen, all of them are issued primarily on a lottery basis.
Okay.
And since Trump has been elected, there's already been talks of further reducing the number of visas that they'll issue.
That's right. So in your firm, for example, none of your batchmates have been asked to take a visa. Even people who are your senior have been asked to take a visa, right? Yet?
Very few. Very few.
Okay. I mean, is there work for folks at your level, say 3 to 5 years experience? Because I'm also hearing a lot of you folks are simply getting benched.
Yes, that's also true. Because it's mainly because certain clients, mainly in the United States, they have reshaped their policy around insourcing. So a lot of the work that they require is now being insourced to America itself. They're hiring Americans to do their jobs instead of.
Okay, say that again so that we are clear. I mean, let's say, for example, you're working for an American client. A lot of the jobs that used to be outsourced to companies like yours and the jobs that engineers like you used to do are now getting insourced in the US itself?
Yes.
Okay, and that's basically resulting in one of two things, and that is a lot of you all are getting benched.
Yes. Also, they are, it's forcing us to ramp down on our team size as well. I mean, my own team has seen ramp down of 50%. Like we had 8 people and now we have 4. And the other 4 had to be let go, benched, as you said, because of this insourcing.
So typically, how long are you benched? 1 month, 2 months?
It depends, actually. As long as there's no available work for them to do, they're benched. And the thing is, being benched is not actually good for you. It affects your performance evaluation, adversely.
Of course. So you have friends who've been benched for like 6 months plus?
Yeah, I do.
Wow. And so what do these folks? I mean, do they think of getting out of this company? Do they think of reskilling themselves? Maybe looking at some other field?
Yeah. Actually, you were talking about automation and reskilling before, and that is exactly what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. They are making a push towards people reskilling, like providing resources, textbooks, and online courses and all that stuff, in order to make these people skilled in this growing field of automation and AI.
Okay.
But the people who are not interested, or the people who have been working on something starkly different for a long time, they are most likely to switch.
And one final question before I let you go. What about at the entry level? What about your juniors? Are you seeing far fewer of them come in than you would say 3 years ago?
Yeah, that has already been happening for a long time. I mean, when I graduated, the batch before me, there were around 175 people hired by my company.
Okay.
In my year, it was brought down to around 80. And now I think it's even fewer than that, like 50, maybe 40.
Okay, 50, 40. All right, thanks, Ashwin. Appreciate you joining us. So, like I said, I mean, this guy works for one of the big IT companies in Bangalore, and they've gone from 175 4 years ago to 40 at the entry level. And you can imagine, you know, how it goes up the pyramid. But Mahesh Murthy, I think, wanted to respond to something that Ashwin said.
Yeah, I wanted to make 2 points. I think we're making too big a deal about the H1, you know, the visas thing. If you look at it in a year, 65,000 H1 visas are granted, and maybe an equal number of L1s are granted. Even if we put a total of 120, 130,000, and say 100,000 of them are for tech, and even 75,000 come from India, that's only 75,000 people out of 40 lakh people. So let's not make this about H1B visas, right? So I think that's a big thing. The other thing is that if your entire business is dependent on labor cost arbitrage, the cost of a brown-skinned Indian versus the cost of an American locally in the US, or as they say, saste mein karenge, that business is always bound to go down. Our job here has to be to really become front-end, to really go out there, create the product, create the front-end, charge premium prices, rather than try to do the saste mein karenge services.
Okay.
Any kind of, and see, not only have we lost jobs, they moved to even cheaper countries like the Philippines and Vietnam.
Fair enough.
And we all know that's happening.
But
and
Chris,
that is the mega movement that the IT companies haven't done yet.
Chris, I think the larger point that Ashwin was trying to make is this: that somebody like him, who's 3 years into the field, or he was even referring to his seniors who are 5 years into the field. I mean, it would have been unheard of for such a person working in one of the, say, big 4 IT firms in Bangalore to not even be asked to apply for a US visa. But now that's the new normal, and that's why the H1B is such a ringing thing, right? Krish?
Jacob, the point is, in India, the top companies are not even applying for 50% of what they applied last year. Suppose last year somebody has applied, Infosys had applied for 10,000. I don't know the exact number.
Okay.
This year they have applied for 5,000. And so are the top 5, 10 companies. But still, if you look at the total 75,000 H1Bs, you will find that Indian companies, that there are a lot of, you know, what they call staffing companies or consulting companies, they will hire people and send them to India, US. And they in turn will be, those people will be in turn hired by the TCS, IBM, Accenture of the world. The second most important thing, Nandita is always talking of the April appraisal. Now companies have gone for a continuous appraisal. Month after month they are doing it. If you take a IBM or an Accenture, and every month they chop off people. If you are in the bench for more than 3 months, you are not safe. You are given targets, and the targets are made impossible so that you leave the company. You resign and go.
Okay.
So it has become quite bad. And particularly for people who cannot, you know, suppose somebody has spent 10 years in this industry, he cannot reskill himself to the new, what is the new digital economy. It's not possible for him. So most of them are forced to look for jobs.
No,
and it is a bad thing. Many of them are really, you know, don't know what to do.
Fair enough.
They talk to us
what is
desperately
worrying though, Gaurav, is that, you know, at least 3 of the 6 panelists on the show have said that this is a big problem. I mean, Krish called this a tsunami. And yet when you speak to like industry representatives, you speak to the NASSCOM chief or others who represent this industry, they seem to suggest that it's not as bad as we make it out to be.
I think there's a bigger problem here, and it's emblematic of a bigger crisis coming in the job scene. If the IT sector, the IT services industry, which is the most formalized sector in India, is facing such a job crisis, clearly sectors lower down the value chain would be facing a bigger crisis, if not they're already facing. And if you look at some numbers, just to put things in perspective, between October and December, non-agricultural, labor-intensive sectors, 8 of these which the government surveys to find out the job scene, between October and December, which were the peak months of demonetization, 152,000 casual jobs were retrenched.
Okay.
And clearly this seems to be an impact of the cash crunch, because people who are paid in cash, the casual and the part-time workers, were laid off first. And if they were laid off, clearly there was lesser amount of investment happening. But there is another question here. There is some amount of evidence to show that there is an increase in investment and increase in spending activity. Clearly, at least in spending activity, because you can see by the number of cars that are being sold, it has reached record levels. So there is some amount of money coming and some amount of spending that has already happened. Now, if spending has happened and sales are happening at the shop end, why aren't companies hiring? The primary reason for that is there is a lot of unused capacity that still needs to be worked out. Yes, and there is a large stockpile of inventories which the companies need to clear out. Once these inventories are cleared out and the unused capacities are exhausted, probably companies will start hiring. But as of now, clearly there is no hiring activity that seems to be happening.
But that should worry folks like P. and Vijay, because ultimately, I mean, voters vote for jobs, right? I mean, no matter how much investment is coming and how much car sales are there, the fact is that, you know, you came to power promising 2 crore jobs a year. You're going to complete 3 years in power in a few days. Far from 6 crore. I mean, I think the Labour Bureau said, well, what was that? 1.5 lakh jobs
lost.
Yeah,
casual jobs were lost.
Yeah, 1.5 lakh jobs were lost in just the 3 months from October to December. Doesn't that worry you, P. and Vijay?
Zakka, it doesn't worry me at all, because all this data is totally distorted. Let me give you some macro data. During demonetization, there was a depletion of contract labor. But if you see the whole year statistics put out by CMIE, along with BSc, 2 highly respected organizations, the moving average of unemployment stood at 4.1% last week for the year as a whole, which was a tremendous improvement over the unemployment figures, which had touched 6 and 7% levels. If you looked at the detailed report on employment done by the State Bank of India's economic division, they showed that in 15-16 we had the sharpest reduction in unemployment in this country for the last decade. If you looked at the merchandise statistics put out by the Indian Retail Association, $650 billion of merchandise trade is going on in this country, which translates into about 2.25 to 2.5 million jobs in the retail sector. There is a facetious view that one of these gentlemen said that if the IT sector is in shambles, the rest of the country is going to dogs. This is rubbish. I think there is a lot happening in the financial services sector, there's a lot happening in the retail sector, there's a lot happening in the healthcare sector, and I'm very happy that these oases of high pays and high prosperity are getting back to a new normal. They should settle down to a 10% EBITDA margin. They should bid for government contracts in India rather than in Ohio and Michigan, and settle to a decent profitability. That's what will happen.
Okay.
IT sector will not disappear, but it will change color. And don't think that India is on a mass unemployment problem or something. Things are happening. Rural investment is taking place. Narega is taking place. Infrastructure investment is taking place. Private sector is not investing. We know that. But that's being more than supplemented by public sector investment and FDI.
All right. Gaurav wants to make a quick rebuttal, then I get closing comments.
Still going to fight
shy,
but we are okay. Our investment is good.
No, I don't want to make a rebuttal, but I want to make a point on the infrastructure investment. Clearly, infrastructure is the biggest.
2 lakh crores.
One second. Let him just.
Infrastructure has the highest multiplier effect so far as job creation is concerned.
That's right. Yeah.
So, according to government's own data, for every 1 lakh invested 2.7 jobs are created. Now, but that said, there are 70,000 crore worth of projects stuck in arbitration. 85% of these are because of claims made on the government, which are stuck in courts, government agencies, and various levels of arbitration. What the government should do now is, we are not talking about creating jobs in thousands. We are talking about creating jobs in millions. An estimated 1 million people join the queue of hopefuls every month. And given the fact that most of these jobs have to be created at the low end of the value chains, it is only wise for the government to bolster infrastructure spending, which will create immediate jobs in thousands.
Prabhat, in terms of closing comment, if Indian IT needs to recover from this, and I said this at the top of the show as well, is reskilling not once in every 5 years, but reskilling perhaps once every 18 months the way forward?
Yeah, no. Whenever you hit the roadblock, you need to reorient, refocus, reframe the entire thing. So here, if we think that in terms of job losses, we are having some extra professionals in the field. Why don't we utilize these people in building the government IT infrastructure, like in the different states, in the remote corners? The service delivery is not to that standard, but what it should be. Okay. We can utilize these people to really take up those challenges in the remote corners of the country, and we can also create a lot of jobs over there also.
All right. So, I'm going to wrap it up, but I hope for the sake of the people in the IT industry and the ones who are hoping to have a career in the IT industry, things are not as alarming as Krish seemed to suggest. But we'll know. I guess the next 3 months we'll find out one way or the other just how bad the situation is. All I'll say as we wrap up is something that the Prime Minister said yesterday, that India's talent, IT plus IT equals IT, information technology plus India's talent equals India tomorrow. I think we have a far bigger problem India today, right now, next 3 months, next 6 months, before we can say that the IT sector here in India is in the pink of health. Thank you very much to all my guests. Really appreciate you joining us on our show tonight. You can go to our website, news18.com, if you want to leave a comment on this show, or if you're in the IT sector and if you found this program informative. Quick break here on the program. As we take a break, we leave you with the results of our poll, and I'll see you on the other side with more news that's made the headlines this evening. Welcome back. Coming to a big exclusive news break, CNN News 18's investigations editor Manoj Gupta has unearthed how the Lashkar-e-Taiba has taken advantage of the upheaval that's going on in the Kashmir Valley to complete its anti-India strategy. Let's take you through what the Lashkar is planning right now, this whole re-strategizing that's happening, and that's coming from the top command of the Lashkar. They're dramatically reducing the number of trained cadres who are infiltrating into the Kashmir Valley. They're in fact redeploying some of their assets westwards towards Baluchistan, and here's why. The LET top command feels that Kashmir has become such a self-festering wound that locals will take care of furthering the Lashkar's agenda in the valley. The atmosphere in the Kashmir Valley is so surcharged that foreign militants are no longer required. That is the assessment made by the top command of the Lashkar. For the first time in 20 years, more local militants are joining the ranks than foreign ones, and that's been confirmed by the IG Kashmir range as well. The Lashkar has taken advantage of the internal turmoil that is going on in the Kashmir Valley. Their cadre are being diverted to Balochistan to guard the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which Pakistan considers a big asset. Remember, the Lashkar is the handmaiden of the ISI, so they're taking instructions from GHQ Rawalpindi to redeploy some of their assets to guard the CPEC. The IG Kashmir range, Javed Gilani, has confirmed that for the first time in 20 years, there's a greater number of local terrorists as opposed to foreign ones. The Lashkar has also stopped appointing foreign commanders, which in and of itself is quite a new development. Let's listen in to Javed Gilani, the IG Kashmir range.
See, if you look at the number of people who have joined in the last 1 year, as I said, about 90 odd terrorists have new recruits in the terrorist ranks all over the valley. So these boys, we are seeing a criminalization in a way. 95 new recruits थे last year. तो there are जो 200 के करीब 200 कुछ militants अभी है, उसमें 110 के करीब जो है वो local militants है.
Now, there is another part to this story, and this is something you wouldn't find a year ago or 18 months ago, a couple of years ago, and that's how a cash crunch is hitting the Lashkar and making them rather desperate, and that is sort of playing itself out in the increased number of cash loots that you're seeing, particularly in South Kashmir. This has hit the Lashkar's Kashmir operations in a big way. Demonetization, of course, has had a role in that as well. There are multiple intercepts that have been made by intelligence agents on the ground, where you can hear Lashkar commanders on the other side in POK asking local militants to arrange for their own funds. Increased bank loots, including that one that we saw in Shopian just last week, where 5 policemen and 2 security guards were killed. That is again an indication of just how desperate the Lashkar has become on this lack of money business. Let's once again listen in to Javed Gilani, the IG Kashmir range.
कुछ बैंक डकैतीज हुई थी साउथ कश्मीर में, तो उसकी तहकीकात के दौरान हमें पता चला कि लश्कर-ए-तोयबा और हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन के जो एक्टिव मिलिटेंट्स है उस एरिया के, वो इन केसेस में इन्वॉल्व थे। इस साल के भी जो केसेस हुए हैं उसमें एचएम और लश्करी तोयबा की इन्वॉल्वमेंट जो है वो सामने आई है। बाकी जो मिलिटेंट्स है वो कुछ फॉरेन मिलिटेंट्स और कुछ लोकल मिलिटेंट्स जो साउथ कश्मीर में एक्टिव है वो इन्वॉल्व है।
Business of the terror machine turning domestic is also being exemplified by the killers of Lieutenant Umar Fayaz. The Jammu and Kashmir police has now identified the group that is responsible for both the kidnapping and the murder of this young army lieutenant. The group is the Hizbul Mujahideen. It's led by a terror commander named Abbas. Again, he's not a Pakistani, he's not a foreign terrorist, he's a local from Shopian, Kashmir. Lieutenant Umar Fayaz was abducted and murdered by terrorists while attending a relative's wedding in Kulgam. His body was later discovered at a chowk a full 24 hours after he was kidnapped. Again, it points to the growing indigenization of this menace, something that we saw in the 90s, which had vanished in the early 2000s, and now once again the terrorism problem in Kashmir is becoming highly localized and highly indigenized. Let's once again listen in to DIG of South Kashmir, SP Pani. He spoke to my colleague Mufti Islam.
Tell us what is this group and how many members are there who are involved in this?
The investigation is going on, and what we have learned that it's a Hizbul Mujahideen group, and the group has been identified. Muhammad Abbas is one of the major wanted man in this. He was earlier arrested in a murder case, and then he was subsequently out in April 2016, and since then he is active in this belt, and he was the key person who was involved in this killing. And now we are looking to all the angles, and we are investigating the case.
Who are the other members of the group, and how they have been active since when?
So they are active in recent times, but these three members' photographs we have released, the three accused photographs, and we are now expecting the cooperation from the public to identify them and help us in the investigation.
What did happen, when this boy was picked up and then he was taken, for some distance and then apparently shot? Was he tortured? What does the postmortem say?
The postmortem report is awaited. We have got the 2 bullet shots in his body, and apparently it was fired from an INSAS vehicle, and we are looking into the other parts of the investigation.
And this INSAS was stolen, snatched by these militants?
Yes, because as you know, some of the weapons have been snatched and they are using it. So we are looking into it and making the forensic examination and other comparisons as well.
Now, even as the violence continues against security forces, including the likes of Lieutenant Umar Fayaz, 3,000 young Kashmiris have turned up for a police recruitment drive. Lieutenant Umar Fayaz's killing has failed to deter Kashmiri youth in the droves from seeking jobs to serve the nation. Kashmir police say there's been an overwhelming response to the recruitment drive. 1,674 candidates turned up in Anantnag, which is in South Kashmir, which is where recently the by-election had to be cancelled. This is Mehbooba Mufti's backyard, and really the growing crucible of the insurgency problem in South Kashmir. And yet, so many people turned up there. 1,295 in Bandipora. Remember, this is only the first day of a 3-day hiring camp. We spoke to some former police officers as well as others to get their reactions on this. This is perhaps the best reply to the killing of Lieutenant Umar Fayaz.
Uniform services are the first preference of the youth in Kashmir, and they are not browbeaten by the dastardly act of the abduction and murder of Lieutenant Umar Fayaz. In fact, I think what is happening is going to blow up into something bigger. It could well be the beginning of some kind of a civil war within the society. This is a slap on the face of those who had imagined that by their dastardly act they will dissuade the youth from Kashmir to join the services and serve the country.
There are certain things which you see from a political angle. This is the factor employment, which is attracting them to these recruitment drives. Numbers don't matter. it is always the will. There is urge for peace too. There is urge for employment also. Youth needs a direction. There are a lot of things to be done. I won't say that merely youth coming out for recruitment drives. I will say that everything is okay now. Things are to be settled down. Things are to be sorted out. And we should be realistic. This is an opportunity. Yes, we should rely upon, and we should make certain things, certain corrections, so that these opportunities are translated ultimately into some good direction where youth will be participating in the mainstream and will live a normal life and will harness their potential to build a future.
Projecting one side of the coin. The another side of the story is that people have to get jobs. They have to live in. Didn't Indians get jobs when Britishers were ruling India? There is no harm in it because they have to survive. It is their land, and what is wrong in that if they are getting jobs? And they have to do it, obviously. I don't see there is anything wrong or anything which is even debatable because people have to get jobs. People are jobless. People in thousands are jobless.
I don't think so. And I don't agree what Mr. Engineer Rashid is saying. I believe that every Kashmiri, they are peace lovers and they want to serve nation. These are the men who are from Kashmir, are serving nation, are in CRP, are in army, and they're ready to join any force. Right. This is one positive signal from Kashmir that every Kashmiri is not a militant. Every Kashmiri is not a stone pelter.
All right, like I said, it's perhaps the best reply to the dastardly killing of Lieutenant Omar Fayaz. In case you feel strongly about the story, thousands turning up for this police recruitment drive, please go to our website, news18.com. Please leave us a comment. Thanks for tuning in to Face Off at 9. On the other side, Viewpoint with Prince Shobhi.